December's Community Day weekend is coming up soon, so we're looking back at this year's Community Days and ranking them, which were the best and which were duds. For this year's ranking, we'll be using a system we came up with to grade each comm day on 4 criteria: new shiny, rarity, PvP viability, and raid viability. The latter 3 are all scored out of 5, 5 being an extremely rare Pokemon, a top tier PvP Pokemon, or a top tier raid attacker, and 0 being the opposite. For the new shiny criteria, it's scored instead out of 2, seeing that there's less nuance to this one. A 2 out of 2 means it's a brand new shiny, a 1 out of 2 means it's an existing shiny but was released in the last 16 months, and 0 means it's just an older shiny. So without further ado, let's start off with our last place pick with Chansey Community Day. Now despite being the last place Pokemon, there was some good to this one. It's an old shiny, so no points there, but Chansey is on the rarer side of things. Not enough to score it 5 out of 5, but I think it's rare enough to net it 3 out of 5, especially when its pre-evolution Happiny was available in eggs. As for PvP and PvE viability, Wild Charge Blissey is a joke that you don't want to use in PvP. Now Chansey does have some use as a toxic stall Pokemon in the Great League and Little Cups, but it's not really that good, but I'll give it 1 point. And I'll also give it a point in PvE, purely because Chansey and Blissey are the best gym defenders, but that's honestly not super important. For our second worst Community Day, we have Bellsprout. Now this comm day didn't need to be the worst, as Victory Bell certainly had PvP potential with a new fast move. The issue is that Magical Leaf wasn't that big of an upgrade for Victory Bell, just a side grade to give it a different playstyle. Giving it something like Poison Jab or Vine Whip could have helped it score higher. I give it a generous 2 in the rating department, only because it made for a serviceable poison attacker against Tapu Bulu, who was in raids around this time. And in terms of rarity and it being an old shiny, it doesn't score much there either. Next comes Dynamo Community Day, and it was a new shiny, which was nice, along with it being slightly less common of a Pokemon, but it still falls apart otherwise. Volt Switch is a good addition, but not enough to give it much use in PvP, and it's a bad raid attacker. I really think Electros would have been a great double move Community Day with Volt Switch and Wild Charge, but here we are. Another Pokemon to tie at 7 points is Sewaddle Community Day. Now this one was very similar to Dynamo, in that it's a nicher, glassy Pokemon who got a new fast move. I'll give a little more credit to this one though, because its moveset is at least spammy with Shadow Claw, Leaf Blade, and X-Scissor, but once again, it could have used a new charged move too. At the number 7 slot comes Ponyta's Dual Community Day, including its Kanto and Galarian forms. Now this wasn't a new shiny Community Day, and both have been released for a while. Both Ponyta have been featured enough to make me not want to give them more than a 3, and that may be generous. But because Galarian Rapidash has some viability in PvP, especially in the Psychic Cup, which actually came right after this comm day, and Wild Charge being a decent move for both, I gave them a 3 out of 5 there. Getting to the middle of the pack, we have Bounsweet. Once again, this was a Pokemon who got a new shiny, which was fun, but for something that got a PvP move, it really didn't do much for Serena in PvP. I think High Jump Kick is a fine idea, but its energy cost wasn't good. I will give Serena a few points because with the moveset of Magical Leaf and Grass Knot, it's not a bad budget grass attacker. At number 5 is our first Alolan starter of the ranking with Litten. Now Litten is an extremely cute Pokemon, so I was excited for this Community Day in general, but its grade is a little less impressive. Another new shiny is always nice, but obviously the starters aren't going to be rare, and while Incineroar does have a little bit of use in PvP, and even in raids with Blast Burn and Darkest Lariat, I don't think it's stand out enough to give it any more points in either category. Our 4th best Community Day of the year was Mankey, the last one of the year. Now Mankey is an old shiny, and it's been an incredibly common Pokemon over the past year or so, but it does make up for it in terms of viability. Annihilape is obviously a great Pokemon in PvP, but it was knocked down a bit following the nerf to Counter. Rage Fist was a brand new move, and a powerful one at that. Not only did it make Annihilape more relevant again, but Primeape too, seeing that it has the spammy Karate Chop. Because it made not 1, but 2 Pokemon a lot better in PvP, I feel confident in giving it a 5 in that category. And while it isn't much, Rage Fist Shadow Annihilape is actually a decent ghost attacker, even without a ghost fast move. That said, it's not the most practical choice, so I'm only giving it a 2. At number 3, we move to the Grass Alola starter with Rowlet. Now Rowlet fared a little bit better than Incineroar, with the same scores except for 1 more point in the raid category, simply because with Magical Leaf and Frenzy Plant makes it a very solid grass attacker, though with the changes to raids that were brief, we actually had Leafage as the better fast move. It still wasn't good enough to warrant a 4 or a 5, but it's definitely a good choice. At number 2 comes our pseudo-legendary for the year. Gumi Community Day was anticipated by many, but I don't think it hit the highs of past years. Obviously, Goodra is a bulkier pseudo, so it wasn't really fit for raids like Axew, Dino, or Gible, but I would argue that it had some of the best PvP performance. Now Thunder Punch was seen as a mediocre addition to Goodra, but it actually provided really useful coverage for the Dragon type, specifically against the water-heavy Great League meta and Gyarados in Master Premier. I wouldn't put it at a full 5 out of 5, but its viability definitely nets at 4 points in PvP. This actually brings it to 10 out of 17 points, which is just shy of our number 1 pick. Before we get there though, for our 4 Community Day classics this year, Porygon was a niche Pokemon, but a great shiny. Bagon made for a nice opportunity to hunt shinies and high IV specimen for Salamence. Cyndaquil was an up-and-coming Pokemon in PvP after getting Thunder Punch, and Beldum was obviously the highlight of the year, as a hugely relevant Pokemon in raids and the Master League even today. But for our top Community Day this year, we have Poplio. Now Poplio gets a 2 for being a new shiny, but only 1 in the rarity department. It scores higher in PvP and in raids though. Hydro Cannon was an excellent addition to Primarina. The Water Fairy typing is already great in PvP, and Hydro Cannon rounded out its Charm and Waterfall movesets well, allowing it to be usable in Great League and Ultra League, but especially in the Master League. The fact that it's actually a meta Pokemon in Open Master is really impressive, and while there's obviously better water attackers out there, Hydro Cannon Primarina is still the best non-Shadow or Mega water starter for raids, so with Primarina's broader use, I think it safely nets the number 1 spot. But those are just our rankings. What were your favorite and least favorite Community Days this year? And was this year a strong or weak year for comm days? Honestly, while there were some choices that we liked, I would say this year was certainly on the weaker side. And it's less the Pokemon that I have an issue with, but rather the move choices. As I mentioned, Leavanny and Electros really could have used 2 comm day moves, and others like Victory Bell and Serena would have appreciated a stronger exclusive move. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos. We'll also be doing a predictions video for which comm days we'll be projecting in 2025, so stay tuned for that. Until next time though, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.